everyone. As you all know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And even though we're coming towards the end of the month, I think this is a topic that we need to be speaking about every single month. And if you're an athlete, if someone in your life is an athlete, a young athlete, or maybe you just have children who are playing a sport at school, or maybe you're someone who used to be an athlete, if you want to hear about the connection between mental health and being an athlete at any stage, at any level, this is the live for you. I'm going to be joined in the moment by two very special guests. I'm partnering for this live with one of my very good friends right now, Angel City FC. I'm so excited to be working with them. And as a friend of theirs, I thought it'd be really interesting to dive into this discussion around mental health and sport. So I'm just looking out for my two very special guests today that will be joining. I'm looking to see if I can add them with me. Let's have a look. Stay online because you're going to be learning a lot of great insights today. So let's see. Sees this. I think you're there, Lauren. I hope you get my request. As you're coming in on live, let me know what you've been doing Mental Health Awareness Month. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
So good. I'm so good. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. For anyone who doesn't know, Lauren Holiday, former United States women's national team player and 2 Olympic gold medals and 1 World Cup championship. Lauren, it's so awesome to have you for this conversation. And I believe we're about to bring on Jane as well. And so
Awesome.
I'm going to invite We're Angel City into our conversation as well. Let's see if Jane sees this. I've never done this with more than 2 people. Have you done that before?
I've actually never done an Instagram live ever, Jay.
Oh,
So
Lauren, that's amazing.
this
Oh,
is the first.
Hi.
oh, I want to mess with this. I don't want to be the big screen. I want one of you to be the big screen. How do you? Are you the big screen on your own camera?
No, you are.
No, really like to be the big screen.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, hopefully when you talk, it takes you to the big screen. But I am here with 2 special guests today. We have Lauren Holiday, who I've already introduced, and of course, Jane Alaconis, who's the UCLA women's soccer assistant coach. She's been with UCLA for 3 years. And before that was a 4-year starter at Duke. So Jane and Lauren, we have so much expertise and so much insight and so much experience in the room. Thanks to both of you. And I'm so glad we're doing this together. I'm going to ask you lots of different questions to both of you, to each of you, and everyone who's watching in the audience. If you have any questions to do with sport and mental health, if you have any questions to do with a child, a friend, a partner who's an athlete and wants to discuss mental health, please send them here. So Lauren and Jane, the first question I wanted to ask you is, when did you realize in your career that you had to think about mental health and sport and being an athlete? When was that moment for you?
Jane, do you want to go
first?
Yeah, I can go first. Lauren and I both took part in a program called Olympic Development Program. So it was this massive tryout system across the US. And we would have to go to like the state level, the national level, the regional level, and just try out with like hundreds, thousands of other girls. Every time I went, I was like insanely nervous. It was very, very difficult. If I did well afterwards, I was like on cloud 9. If I didn't do well, it was very, very hard for me personally. But yeah, I think in those moments, like I felt sick, I didn't feel good. I was like, Mom, Dad, like I think I have the flu. It's very hard for me to perform. And so the moment it ended, I was like, oh, it's over. Like I can go have a cheeseburger. I feel fine. So I think going through that, I was like, wow, like there's a huge mental piece to the game, especially as you move up in level.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jane. And what about you, Lauren?
Actually, Jane, it's so funny you say that because I would say like my first experience dealing with like the mental aspect of the game would be in ODP. I remember I got cut from ODP, which is Olympic Developmental Program, what she was talking about, and I didn't make the regional team. And I remember like that feeling, like I was crushed and I didn't know how to like get over it. And I remember I listened to Gloria Estefan, Reach Higher, the song, over and over on my playlist until I fell asleep at night. And I remember making myself a promise of like, I will never feel this way again. But going into any tryout or anything like that, you know, you get the nerves and you like have to figure out how to overcome that.
Yeah, no, those are both such great examples. And from what you both shared, what I find fascinating about that, even as someone who's not an athlete, uh, even though I'd like to pretend to think I am one, but for someone who's not an athlete, it's so relatable. Like I can think of moments where I felt that way, or I can think of scenarios in my life where there's been rejection or failure or a challenge that results in a certain way of thinking. And I've always just felt as an athlete, it's just so much more extreme because everything's riding on it. You're experiencing it every single week when there's a game. There's, you know, multiple training sessions every day. With young athletes, what are some of the early causes and signs? Like, what are some of the things you're seeing, not in yourself, but in the people that you're working with? Obviously, Jane as a coach, and Lauren as well. Like, you know, you've done so much work in this space. What are those early signs and causes?
I think, so my youngest team right now, they're 8 and 9-year-olds, and
Wow.
they're very honest, and it's, I appreciate that. But at some points I'm like, okay, Susie, go in at right mid, and she'll say, is that the parent's side? And I'll say, yeah, and she'll say, I'll wait here, and next time you want to sub me on this side, then I'll go in.
Wow.
Or like if a new player comes out and 15 minutes in, she's like, I have a stomach ache. You start to recognize, not necessarily like mental health, something diagnosable, but just discomforts and anxieties within the game. Obviously, like the positives far outweigh the negatives or the discomforts. And some of those, the players have to break through and the coaches help, or teammates help each other break through. But certainly with the younger kids, they're very open and honest about where they want to play, where they feel safe, and things that cause them discomfort or fear.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that is incredible how telling that is. And I love how honest we all are at that age. We might feel embarrassed to share that as time goes on, or we may start censoring that as time goes on. But that's such a big learning point for parents as well, I'm sure, who are watching right now. Lauren, how about for you? What are you seeing the causes and signs?
You know, it's funny. I actually just experienced this with my 4-year-old. She's playing soccer right now, and I was taking her to practice, and she has practice on Mondays and games on Wednesdays, like not at all serious. This is just fun. And yesterday she was having a really hard time going to soccer, and I finally asked her like, what are you feeling? Like, why are you so upset? And she was saying that she was nervous because it was a game day and she wanted to do her best on game day, and just like really noticing like how it affected her mood and how she felt a certain way about like a competition, and just letting her know. And I think it's so important to let our younger athletes know that right now it's not about winning or losing. There's nothing on the line. It's about like exploring yourself and getting to know yourself and getting to know the game and really fall in love with the game. And trying to explain that to a 4-year-old isn't as easy, but to see like that anxiety at 4 years old, I can't imagine, you know, what some kids are going through at 12 and 13.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that just it almost breaks your heart because you know how much you love this sport and how much you want them to love sport. You know, for me, I grew up in London. I'm born and raised in England, and so you know, football, soccer is my number one sport. And my team lost last night, and it was the Europa League final with Manchester United and Villarreal, and just watching United lose was like, you know, as a fan, you're broken, like, and then you can only imagine how the players are feeling, you know, after their performance. And so that, what I find fascinating, what I'd love to know from both of you is, how do you have a healthy love for the game and then still be competitive? How do you train that in yourself and in the young people that are coming through the ranks? Like, how does someone balance that? Because I guess I mean, you both have played at, you know, hugely competitive levels, huge successes. So you've obviously found a way to make it work. What are some of the things you started doing? What are some of the practices and habits that you both use that people listening or watching today could practice as well?
I got really good advice from a coach at a young age who told me to never let your high be too high and your low be too low. And so he said, if you're training for a World Cup, an Olympics, a state cup championship, a club tournament, winning that tournament can never be your highest high. There's always something after. And when you're trying out for a team, when you're going into that tournament and you lose, that can never be your lowest low because there's always something after. So I think at a young age, I learned how to always set a goal. And so when I got cut from the Olympic team in 2008, my goal was to go back to UCLA and be the best player that I could and win an NCAA championship. So there was always something my sight was set on next. Like I was thinking, okay, well, what's next? And when you win an Olympic gold medal, it's like really, really hard to say what's next because you feel like you achieved everything. And honestly, my lowest lows weren't from being cut. It was after winning such a big tournament and then trying to come down off of that.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculously hard as well. Like, it's funny, you think that it's going to be the rejection or being cut, but actually responding or even trying to recreate, I guess, a gold medal, chase it again. That sounds like a complete, a mental and psychological nightmare trying to recreate something.
And I feel like that's where athletes get stuck, where you become this super competitive athlete and you never know how to come down. You always are, like you said, recreate that in your mind. And that's what makes people great. But what also makes retirement really hard. But that constant chase of competition and being the best, that can be a challenge in athletes, I think.
What are your thoughts on that, Jane, from that question around what have been some of the practices and habits that you've put in place to change your mindset, to be competitive, perform at a high level, but at the same time, make sure that you're conscious of your mental well-being?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to love of the game. So the first game I ever coached, we lost 5-2, but I was like, I had the time of my life. I loved watching my players. As a player, I loved playing. You always know there's going to be another game or another opportunity around the corner. So you just think even in loss, I tell my young players, we respect the game. We love the game. We're thankful for the game. So yeah, even we had a very, very tough loss a few weeks ago with UCLA. And at the end of it, we had a fantastic year. We loved the game so much. Today wasn't our day. Today sucked. But we loved the game and we'll always love the game. And the game gave us everything we have for the most part. So
I wish I had both of you as my coaches when I was growing up. This is such good advice. This is such fantastic advice. It's so wonderful to hear that this is what people are hearing after a loss. I did have one good soccer coach growing up, and he'd always say to us, he was like, if you lose, you cry for a night. And if you celebrate for a night. And he was like, you don't let the celebration go on for too long, because if you celebrate something for too long, you're going to cry for longer when it doesn't go your way as well. And so he was like, whether we lose or we win, we're going to cry and pick ourselves up the next day, or we're going to celebrate for one day, and then we're going to pick ourselves up and move on again, because he just didn't want us to feel like we got lost in even the celebration. And so, yeah, I wish I had both of you there by my side coaching me and shouting all of these things out. When you're seeing an athlete developing their ability, or, we've got a lot of parents watching, and I'm seeing a lot of questions flying through, and they're all like, what do I do with my young child who loves this sport, or, develops them? What is the way to do it with those really young kids? And, Lauren, you were speaking about your 4-year-old, I think it was. And, Jane, you're speaking about you teaching 8 to 9-year-olds again. It's like, what can parents do to be effective in their development of their child at that stage when it comes to sports, and what should they avoid? Because it sounds like that a lot of the pressure we get to perform is from our parents, especially at a young age.
I personally think parents, giving your child a voice early on. So for a child to feel comfortable, I want my daughter to be able to tell me, maybe, Mom, I don't want to play soccer, or Mom, I don't love this in the same way, or I'm only playing because I want to hang out with the girls on the team or whatever. Like, I think like letting them be honest and open with their journey instead of putting expectations. I feel like maybe the expectations is what makes it a lot harder on children these days, and it provokes that anxiety and in them. But like giving them a safe place to say like, hey, you know, maybe I signed up for soccer, but next year I want to sign up for something else, or I want to play something else, and giving them really that freedom to be able to tell you what they love, I think is important.
Yeah, Lauren nailed it. That's similar to what I was going to say. The kids will tell you. So for example, I had a player that was deciding between an A and a B team, and she told her mom, I want to stick with my carpool with these two other friends, so I want to stay on that team. It was actually the lower team, but she had a lot of fun. She liked her coach. And so I respected the mother. She was like, absolutely, we're going to stick with that team. So letting the child tell you the reasons why they want to do something and not pushing it. And they will tell you when they want more, when they want less. They always do, I find.
Yeah. What about some of the older athletes? Like, I guess as we get older, we sometimes are less honest with ourselves and with other people. We start judging ourselves because we think people may think we're weaker if we share some of these likes or things that we have as preferences. Like, you know, like as a kid, it's very easy to say like, I want to be in the car with these people and I like it. But as you're working with older athletes, how are you encouraging them to open up about their mental well-being and their mental health as a conversation with the sport? Is that something that's actually happening right now?
Go ahead, Jane. I'll let you answer first.
That's a really tough question, actually, because you're exactly right. Like the older players feel like I have to perform. I have to do what the coach has asked. I'm already at this high level. If I don't do this, then I might end up here where I don't want to be. I really need a break right now, but I can't say it because none of my teammates feel the same way. But again, it's conversation and knowing that each athlete and each person is different. So even when we look at our athletes physically, we say, okay, she's very explosive. She might actually need a lot more rest and feel more tired a day or 2 days after a game than a player who maybe floats around the field, runs really efficiently, and doesn't have to explode as much. So I would say just treating every case as an individual, as a single person, and knowing that, hey, maybe she doesn't feel as up for something because of the athlete that she is, because she's totally gassed from the other night. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's lacking desire. But I think definitely just looking at each individual case, and communication is going to be key in all of it.
I also think just as an athlete myself and like figuring out at the highest level what worked for me, I feel like everything is so performance based, and it should be, because to be the best you have to perform like you are the best, but in those situations, like you have to be honest with yourself on where you feel the most comfortable, whether that's a teammate, a coach, a loved one, a spouse, a mom, a dad, someone that you can be real with, because no one can put on the facade for everybody. Like you have to have a safe place. You have to have somewhere to go. And for me, when I played, it was like really important for me to be with my family on those off days. And when we had a break from camp, like maybe one day I didn't train when I was supposed to, but that was because I just needed to be with my loved ones, and I needed to not think about soccer, or I needed to not think about making the next roster. And I think that like getting to know yourself well enough to know who those people are for you is really important.
Yeah, those are such great messages, and I really hope that a lot of athletes or developing athletes or young athletes and parents of athletes get to hear these, because you know everything you're sharing just it makes so much sense and it resonates so deeply, but we just forget about this when there's a competition or when there's a trophy to win or when there's a game. And you know, one of the things that I think's become more and more apparent, especially with the rise of social media, is the fan conversation in the reaction. So, you know, I remember growing up and you'd have to watch, you'd have to wait for the player to come on television to hear what they felt. And then you'd only be able to talk about it with the people sitting in the bar or your home, wherever you were watching the game from. Whereas now, like, the conversation goes on Twitter, and there's tons of tweets and hashtags around every game. People are following along. There's criticism, there's hate, there's negativity. What is something that you both believe is important for fans to know? Because I think it's so easy to have emotional gut reaction to watching your team lose and just, going on social media. Sometimes it's gone really, really far. And I think even though these things are being talked about, sometimes they're getting worse. What are some of your messages to fans and, as people in the game, for them to hear from you around how you'd like them to think about that and their reaction to games, either when you win or lose, and not just to your team, but to the competitor team as well?
I feel like as an athlete, like I just want to say, like the athletes don't owe you anything as a fan. They're performing at the absolute highest level, and they don't want to lose, and they don't want to disappoint you, and they want to do like the best they absolutely can. And they're not going to come to your workplace and tell you that you're not doing well, and they're not going to come to wherever you're home and tell you that you ruined their life or anything like that. So I feel like to just recognize them as human and recognize them as people, as a sister, a mother, a daughter, a husband, a brother, I think is really important, because reading that kind of stuff after you're already hard on yourself, after you're devastated by a loss, it can be debilitating. And I just think that people don't realize how much words matter.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren, for sharing that. Sorry, Jane, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the players that I work with at UCLA within my club, they're like the most amazing, fantastic, kindest, caring human beings. And so to think that anyone would have something negative to say on social media, it's just beyond me, because I come to work and they're like, "Good morning, how are you? Like, how was your weekend?" Just the kindest humans. I know Lauren is too. That's what I've heard from everybody. And so it's like, when you're giving hate in social media, you're talking to some of the best people I know. So like Lauren said, recognizing that they're human, they may be sensitive, and like Jill Ellis said, like Jill said one time in an interview, she's like, I don't read that mess anymore. I don't click comments anymore. So ignore it if it does come across, but yeah, recognizing the humanity in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish everyone would hear that message. I think it's huge. And I've even been, I've been trying to take it a step further for myself, where even in my conversation with my friends, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not judging someone in that way, or, because I think it's so easy. Sometimes you can stop yourself from sharing something on social media, but it's so easy to be on a call with a friend or talking to someone. And it's even just letting that energy take over, or where you're speaking about someone in a non-human way. I think it's a habit that we kind of get into, and it's so easy to fall into that trap, that it's just not healthy. Like you said, these are beautiful humans. They have lives, they have homes, they have, if someone came to our workplace and did the same to us, I think that's a great way to think about it. Speaking about that, in the news, I don't know if you guys saw today that Naomi Osaka obviously said that I think it's at the French Open, that she won't be talking to any press, so that she can prioritize her mental well-being and health, which I thought was a really bold, courageous move, and a really a powerful step forward for athletes as well. How do you both respond and react to that, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first I'm going to say, like, athletes are prepared to take criticism. Athletes aren't prepared to take hate. And I feel like we're not trained, and we're not in this profession to be told that we're horrible people or we ruined somebody's life because we lost the game. But if you critique our like game, if we didn't have a good game, I feel like, we can probably take that and handle it a lot better than you attacking us in a different way. I think that what Naomi said is amazing. I think it's about time that athletes set boundaries. Like, we are human, and Naomi is a human, and if she doesn't want to do media, then she doesn't have to do media. She doesn't owe anybody anything else other than her gift of playing that beautiful game, So I think that I am all for athletes setting boundaries, and I think that this is the time and the conversation surrounding it, and this is the right time to do it, and it needs to be done.
Love that. Thank you, Lauren. Jane, what about?
I loved it. Someone read it to me actually right before this call, and I was like, it was perfectly said. I love that she's protecting herself, because you have to protect yourself to be able to perform your best as well. So hopefully it shows in her performance, and I really respect that, because hopefully people in the future will feel the same, that they can protect themselves first.
I love that. Lauren and Jane, thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing so much of your experience and insight and expertise. I know it's been really, really welcomed well by everyone watching. I'm hearing a lot of people saying, Jen and Lauren, huge respect to you both. Thank you so much. Love you guys. This has been amazing. Seeing loads of positive comments flying in. I wanted to ask you both, is there a final message that you have? We're coming to the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, and I was just saying how we need this month to be every month and continuous, and this needs to be a conversation that needs to be happening every single day in every area of your life, from your career and sport to your home and your family. What is the last message that you have for everyone who's listening and watching, or maybe watching this later as well?
I would say that everybody's mental health journey is their own. There shouldn't be like a comparison, and there shouldn't be a right or a wrong. You taking care of yourself is the most important, and we're all battling something, and we're all like learning, trying to overcome and trying to process the best we can. But it's really, really important, like, for people to just be honest with themselves on where they're at. And I think that that would be my message. Take care of yourself, and you're not any different than anybody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Lauren.
It's cliche, but I think putting the phone down, listening, having conversations, going old school, getting coffee, and just hearing what people have to say. One of our players, we did this game, and she knew the most about every other player on the team. And they were like, holy cow, you answered every single trivia question about your teammate correct. How do you do it? And she said, I don't know. I guess I just listen. And I thought that was amazing, because she had listened to every individual, and I was so impressed. So shout out to Kennedy. We love her. She said she was going to watch today. But yeah, just listening, chatting, and putting the phones away.
I love that. Lauren and Jane, thank you so much again for doing this. For everyone who's watching right now, I'm going to keep this up on my IGTV. So if you want to send it to a friend who you think could benefit from this, please do pass it on. And Lauren and Jane will be following you, watching you. And again, so grateful for everything you shared today. I genuinely loved this conversation. I thought both of you shared such real and authentic advice that anyone in any area of life could apply, and of course, specifically athletes. And I thank you all. And we thank Angel City for hosting this for us as well, and for facilitating, bringing all three of us together to have this really important conversation during Mental Health Awareness Month. So thank you, Angel City. For those of you who don't already, you can go down and follow We Are Angel City on Instagram. And Lauren and Jane, thank you again.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah,
Thank
see
you
you
guys. Yeah, have a great day, everyone.
You too. Bye.